That fix is on the way there now, Pete.
Great. I'll test that.
Nice. Right, we're live. All right, lads. So we want
Thanks.
to talk about maps. Something that I think we all have in common is a shared interest in maps.
Yeah.
Anybody have any particular? Is there any maps that we've added in the last year or so that you has any particular interest in, or like?
Yeah, well, we talked about Purple Lizard recently because we added them recently, but they just kind of changed my perception of what it's what information can be put on a map, and I just love the kind of freedom of expression that they have on their maps, little quotes and little kind of bits of local insight, and it's not just kind of trails and contours and hill shading. It's actual kind of good information. Not that that's not good information, but you can see it in the likes of Compass as well, which we've also added recently. Like they're obviously they're probably the biggest in Europe, are they? Or the most popular
biggest in the world.
Biggest in the world, are they?
Yeah, they're like the largest producer. Can you guys see that now? Can you see my screen?
Oh yeah.
I'll try and do what I did before and reduce.
Yeah, if you narrow in your screen.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get by with it. But yeah, this is Purple Lizard Maps, and like some of the things there you're talking about, Pete, like the origin of the word Moshannon is derived from the native Lenape word, such as it's just I don't know. I'm not going to just read it out, but like there's tons of that in their map. It's so different. You just don't see that on a lot of maps. Like there's east-west maps here in Ireland are fantastic, and there's a huge amount of historical information. But I think a big distinction here is that the guys in Purple Lizard, they actually go to the effort of actually writing out the history lesson on the map itself, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
I think it's so cool.
I had a very interesting debate last week. I won't say with who, but I had a very interesting debate around OSM, actually, OpenStreetMaps, a topic that we've covered here many times. And it was very interesting because what I spoke about was, or my point of view in this particular debate, was the risks when the world becomes too solely reliant on OSM maps. Because I suppose ultimately, if you think about what maps are and do, they reflect areas and they try to reflect kind of, what the reality of the world is. But when you have an open database that anybody can manipulate, people, and there's lots of track records of this, people manipulate maps in order to suit their own desired end. So people are redrawing boundaries, are removing roads, all that because, for example, they might own private property in an area and they want to either, expand the area that they own, or they don't want people accessing certain roads. So they realize by just going into OSM, they can remove these roads and very quickly then can lose, memory and existence. And I was just it actually shook me when I was like so worried about we could enter into a world in the future where people shut down access to different areas purely by manipulating OSM, which anybody, literally any one of us here could go on and remove a road, maybe a road that leads down to a field that I own there, remove that road, add up a gate, and all of a sudden, unless people are making other maps to counter that, might no longer exist.
Yeah.
It's really scary. It's really scary if we were to go into the world of the future where all mapping, all reflection of what is reality on the ground, all of a sudden becomes this open database that anybody can exist. And I was having the chat, the person is like, if anything ever created motivation for me to make sure that we can support mapping providers and we can make sure that somebody else is kind of countering that and going, no, wait a second, that might be what you want to exist, but that is not what actually exists. And I'm going to put down in the map there. And look, it can be good as well. And I know I'm harking on here, but there was another interest. There's a flip side to this as well, because there was this person that actually had battles and fights before about a particular route, because there was a route up a mountain And one person's priority was they wanted to protect vegetation in the area there. So they wanted to remove that route from OSM so people wouldn't go up there anymore. But the other person's priority was reflection of reality. There is literally a route that goes up there. So you can see that battle and counter battle that's current here, where this person's like, this route exists, I'm adding it. Yes, we do want to protect the vegetation here, but the reality is that that exists. The other person saying, no, I want to remove that route so nobody else goes up there, that can encourage the growth of vegetation. So it's a really interesting debate and argument.
Yeah,
well, that's, I mean,
go on, Pete.
We are talking about the flip side of that kind of crowdsourced information. It's not exactly crowdsourced information, I suppose, but like, I wonder how many of these mapping companies use the OSM data set in order to build onto their maps. Like, obviously we've talked to a lot of them, and the majority of them are out surveying and doing that. But I have an inkling that there's some of them that like we've seen before that are kind of looking at this OSM data and just going, right, well, we don't need to look at that because it's clearly marked there and somebody's hiked it and somebody's confirmed it for us. So yeah, look, there's definitely pros and cons to both sides. I in adding the new updated UK OS maps, and we recently just added the 1 to 10K from 1888, I think they are. But like that's a stamp in history that you can't change. Like they were literally drawn out and printed, and so that's a complete flip on what you're saying there.
Well, it's very, very interesting that you mentioned that, because when you read into the story about Right to Roam in the UK there, it was historical maps that formed the basis of the arguments of which areas should be considered public footpaths or not. So again, it's such a good point. It's also about the importance of maintaining historical maps, which again is part of the reason why it's so important from HiiKER's perspective here, that when you do inevitably get in, and if you're somebody who walks in the hills a lot, it is something that will happen. You will get into an argument at a certain point in time about what is private property and what is not private property. And we are dependent on these historical maps, satellite images, private map makers, and public source, OSM maps as well there. But I'll emphasize again, it just reiterated to me how important it is that we continue to maintain private mapping makers there who are, as much as possible, objectively trying to maintain a accurate reflection of the reality of the world in a map.
Yeah, it just adds to that level of verification and validity, like that when you're looking at a map, when you're looking at an actual official USGS map or a Purple Lizard map or a Harvey map or whoever, that you have that element of someone's actually gone out there and looked at this. Someone actually has gone out there and has either hiked that trail or has knows that there's a jetty here for boats, or has spotted a wild purple lizard out in the wild. But there is that element of validity over it. Like OSM, as fantastic as it is as a resource, it's like Wikipedia. Like it's Wikipedia for routes and trails. Like it's a fantastic, almost infinite resource, but it's like there's an element of distrust when it comes to Wikipedia, because you're like, I don't know who wrote this. And but if you read a book, if you read a peer-reviewed journal, if you read actual articles that are properly written and properly peer-reviewed, you're going to trust that because it's been checked by people that know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it is good. And again, when I'm planning a hike, of course, I use OSM as well. It's an incredible, amazing database. But that's where I love to kind of cross-check these things, particularly where you see some kind of routes or roads and you're like, I'm a bit unsure. And like it's so apt you're looking at compass now, but like when you see the detail in those compass maps, that's where it is an amazing opportunity to go, okay, wait a second here. Particularly in the Alps where there can be so many routes, it's a really, really good place to be able to cross-check them.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're hiking in these areas, like if you're doing something like the Alta Via or something like that, you're like, if you just go out there on an OSM map, I think you're a lunatic. Like
Yeah, it's wild. Like people do it, and like they're brave people. You're going out there with an OSM map, and it basically is just like it's pretty much just this, like green, green blobs and a few little lines that are on the map. Like there's no detail. Like you can literally just see a cross reference there of like compass versus OSM.
Wow.
There is no comparison. Like you can't compare those two. Like again, like we kind of keep on these conversations. We kind of keep coming back to the same idea, is that like there is a barrier here. Like there's a very clear barrier that a lot of people will look at that and go, I'm kind of looking at the same thing. Yes, there is more numbers and names, and the lines are a little bit more visible, or they're more clear, more pronounced. But like I'm looking at the same thing. They don't. They might not necessarily understand what these like squiggly lines are on the map. What does that number represent? What are these? What's this track versus this track here? What's the difference? And I guess that is one of the big barriers, and that's what we're trying to do with HiiKER, is to try and bridge that gap of being like introduce people to hiking trails and routes and all that kind of stuff, and then bring them on to using these more powerful maps. And one of the great things that we do as well, again, just to pat ourselves on the back a little bit more, is 3D maps. So like being able to actually visualize these maps. Oh, Jesus, I went into a very mountainous area.
The elevation is there. Yeah, it's crazy.
I actually got a little bit scared there when I jumped in. But you can see, you like very, very easily now. You can see those lines. Sorry, my computer's going really slow. I'm trying to do this while streaming, but you can see the lines. They represent the elevation changes. So contour lines, that's what they represent. Compass maps are not designed for 3D, so that's why they do look a little bit warped. But it really, really helps you to kind of visualize exactly what the landscape is going to look like and what the contour lines mean. So is there any maps that you have seen, Paul, over the last couple of years that you're like, where we need to have those maps that we don't have yet?
There is too many. I say that honestly. Like particularly like a lot of historical maps, we really do. I think I only put up a couple per day, but like there is a global kind of historical one I'd love to have. How you can even do the projections of some of them. Well, some of the ones I'd really love to have, and some of the ones that are absolutely crazy. Again, in the realm of historical first, old Soviet maps. People do not fully appreciate how intensively the Soviets mapped the entire world. Like literally, when you see the old Soviet maps of Ireland, they're insanely detailed. Honestly, it's terrifying to think about how they managed to get all of the information. All of Central America, like in incredible detail, is mapped in areas that would have been in like densely jungle areas. There is maps out there. I encourage. We don't have them on HiiKER, so this is a terrible endorsement for HiiKER. But I want to get them. But like I encourage you to look them up. We will have them. That's what I will say. But like they're absolutely amazing. In terms of other mapping organizations as well, there's so many. Like in the United States, National Geographic maps, they do have some really, really beautiful ones. Even when I was hiking down in Texas, there's some really nice maps down there. Now they're kind of different maps in that they wouldn't have any contour lines on it, so they wouldn't be topographic maps. But they're still really, really good, interesting kind of hunting maps and stuff they have there. Honestly, there's too many. I could go on for hours.
Well, we have been kind of on a bit of a. We have been on a bit of a rampage, like adding more maps, and we've only just recently launched Purple Lizard, as we know, like back in just at the end of May, we launched Purple Lizard. So they're our first major independent mapping provider in America, and it's gone down amazingly. People are loving being able to access them, access them in 3D on the platform. But we're not stopping there. Like we're adding more on at the moment. We're talking to Map the Experience. We're talking to I found really, really good maps. What's your man's name? Is it Tom Harrison?
Oh, in California, yes.
He has such good maps, but I reached out to him and he's saying that the business is closing down.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, sorry, no, not the business is closed. He sold his business to somebody else, and he was just like, he kind of just like responded to my email. And he was like, I'm selling the business, and if the person that takes over wants to get in touch, they'll get in touch. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of take it that he just doesn't really care. He's not really kind of bothered as to whether we do it or not. But like, I was looking at his maps and they were beautiful.
Yeah, really nice maps.
It'd be really nice to get them on board.
Yeah. There is there's a lot of small niche providers in the United States who are mapping out, but like, look, even like Harvey's, I gotta give them incredible kudos because they have such spectacular maps over in the United Kingdom, like up around, even in the Highlands of Scotland, and then right down. I think, sir, you added a new map last week, didn't you?
Oh, Exmoor.
Yes, the Exmoor National Park map.
Oh, yes, right down.
They literally just released the print version of it, and we managed to match them with the digital version.
Is that Exmoor there? Exmoor's further south, isn't it? Or is that
no? This is Exmoor.
Should be it there. Yeah.
It's right. It's like on the top. This is. Oh gosh, it's another more. It's another more.
Dartmoor.
Sorry,
this
yes.
is Dartmoor.
Yeah.
This is Exmoor. As someone in the comments.
Wow.
No, that's not right. But yeah, I was looking at a few things, and they have. There's some really, really interesting kind of points of interest along here. Portlock. I was looking at images of Portlock Weir, and it's like the swamps, like the marshes outside of Mordor in Lord of the Rings. Like, it's like mad looking. On the map, it just looks like a regular beach, but like on these images, it looks like this terrifying, like haunted marsh.
I think Lord of the Rings is going to have to go on the bingo card for these live events because it's mentioned every single one of them.
Obviously, the Southwest Coast Path walks through Exmoor as well, walks through the region. So I'm sure it's a pretty spectacular way. Also, the Two Moors Way, there's a bunch of different long distance trails that goes through. But there was this point. Is it here? I think it might be this section here. There's like this tiny little micro valley. I think it's called the Valley of the Rocks. I could be wrong where I'm positioned here.
3D there.
Good point.
Show us this micro valley of yours.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
Is it this one?
Wow.
I think it's...
Wow.
I thought it was...
Yeah, you can definitely see some sort of very strange...
in there. Yeah, that looks pretty interesting.
It's like a snake.
Zoom in there. Wait, there's a little is it like a lake or something? You zoom in there?
In here?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's class.
Oh, sorry. Do you know what? Yes, that is like pretty cool. But then it's actually right here, so you can see it here where that like the parking sign is.
Right.
And like it just again, it looks like something in like Star Wars. It looks bizarre. It's just like rocks, like boulders everywhere. It kind of looks like starts with a W. It's up at the Peak District. Paul, you and I were there. Winnett's Pass. I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but it looks like a different planet altogether. It looks like something out of Star Wars. I can't use another reference, but
yeah.
Anyway, the maps are beautiful for the area. Like, they really, really are nice. I'm gonna take it out 3D because it's screwing with my brain. But they have like amazing coverage, and their coverage of what's that?
Huh? Nope, all good.
Oh, sorry,
nothing was said.
Yeah, they're
your
like some really, really
your
cool
new
coverage.
shiny internet is failing you on.
Yeah.
No, I know. That's what I get for living up in the hills. But compass maps. So, like, that is the biggest coverage area that we have of any independent mapping provider.
Are we ready to announce some new maps in that area?
Not just yet.
I think so. Yes, I believe coverage in Germany.
Well, you did
sorry. Yes, we're going to be
Yeah, no, there's new maps coming across the whole of Germany. So yeah, that's really exciting to see 1 to 25k topographic maps, the national maps.
Yeah, that's a big part of our kind of the national map push that I'm looking at the moment. So we're also looking at Italy and Norway. So hopefully by the next couple of months, we'll have a good chunk of coverage over the entire kind of hiking vastness of Europe. Plus everywhere else.
That's a whole big area about to add coverage there, though. But the maps in Sweden are absolutely beautiful. We've got so much positive feedback about them, particularly people who are on the Kungsleden. They're absolutely beautiful maps. I love them.
Yeah, they're really nice.
They're super simple, but they are nice and kind of detailed.
And I think that goes to show how, a simple map can be so nice. Sometimes it doesn't always have to be packed with detail. Just simple, clean map, easy to read.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like sometimes it can be a little bit overbearing. Like I remember some of the older like OSI maps. They're like just the colors and stuff like that. Like again, not to denigrate them too much, but like they're like some areas the colors and everything like that, they're just not the best of choice. I think. They will compare that to something like East West, where the colors are just much better.
And you have to give it to OS in the UK as well, Ordnance Survey. They are spectacular maps. It is honestly no shock that they are so popular. They are incredible. And the fact that they're doing full raster color maps all the way up. Pete, is it up as far as 1 to 10k that they do them?
Yeah.
Full color raster maps, like that is crazy. I think we have the 1 to 50k, which are like the 1 to 50k is absolutely amazing, and then to have a 1 to 25k as well there, it's absolutely incredible. I do believe there is a 1 to 10k, although I'm not sure if it's a topographic map, but God, the level of detail is just
it would be interesting to see. I was thinking about your comment about the kind of colors of OSI and that, and you do see, like, particularly with Compass and with Purple Lizard, the contrast that they're using is a lot more kind of stark than some of these older kind of national or governmental services. So it'd be interesting to see in the future if maps are made for digital purposes, really, which definitely helps us in terms of showing them on small screens and stuff when you have a map that has a lot of contrast between areas. But obviously we don't want it to be too harsh. You definitely see it in some of the IGN maps as well, that they're a little bit kind of samey everywhere, and they get a little bit kind of
Well, but I hope they don't go all vector, because I do think there is a beauty in a raster map that, like, there's a couple of things. Just first of all, the consistency of even the size of lettering and stuff like that I do think is very, very helpful. And I would be a shame if the world did go all vectorized maps, because in some ways the inconsistency in terms of, obviously, as you're zooming through a vector map, you're going to see, different text will kind of, stay the same size across that. I think raster maps can be very, very helpful. Once you know how to read a particular raster map and once you know how it's structured, you can get used to it, and it can be very, very quick and easy to read.
Yeah, well, nobody's figured out that vector-based perfect map yet, really.
Yeah,
like we do have some pretty good ones, and our kind of service providers do have some of them, but nobody's taken over this type of thing yet. And I don't know if it'll prove to be a task too difficult for somebody, but obviously the more and more that kind of DPI comes into play and the technologies advance in terms of like screen resolutions and things like that, it becomes more needed, because the more and more intense that the screen resolutions get, the less kind of clear and crisp your raster layers get. So we're probably going too deep into the meat of this, but
I know, but
it's an interesting one, because like then you do look at OSM, and like they haven't done anything with contrast. Like their maps are literally just a blob of green.
Well, keep in mind now, OSM, the styling of those maps is generally down to the provider. Now OSM do have their own style there. So for example, in that case, that's Pete's styling that you're criticizing there. So
so he's just trying to upsell. He's trying to upsell. No,
Time to go.
he's doing that on purpose. He's trying to upsell the Pro Plus map players. That's why.
Yeah.
Also, I just noticed there we have this little blank space of Andorra, but it actually does have coverage. So
It actually does. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, my coverage map is respecting boundaries.
Is it France IGN or is it IGN Spain?
It's right along there. That's interesting. That might be France. It actually looks more like Spain, does it?
Spain, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Spain. There's
the border right there.
France. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing as well, and I'm probably getting into the weeds here for people as well, but my God, you've got to have some appreciation for how much computer time it must take for those like OSGB maps to render all of them. They must just constantly have computers going 24/7 all year round to update these
supercomputers.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. I can't even dream. Like
for us, like some of these maps, like people just might not have the context here, but these take hours of processing. People are so, and honestly, it's still something I'm getting used to, where you're so used to a computer doing something and you like click your finger and it's done. And all of a sudden, when you like realize, even in 2024, like creating maps like these for any sort of a decent area of like a couple of thousand, hectares takes so long. It takes like sometimes days, sometimes weeks. I remember, trying to get a map ready for Texas there. And like I had the computer going 24/7 for 7 days straight, still not like, and it still wasn't complete. I actually had to stop it and figure out a different way to do it. It was taking so long. It's crazy how much power these things take.
Yeah, it is nuts.
And they do it for the entire country of the United Kingdom. It's just absolutely bonkers.
Pete, out of interest, what, like, in terms of like gigabytes, what size is like the entire 1 to 25K map of all of the UK?
It would be up half a terabyte. I don't know. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, the closest guess in the comments gets a prize.
Yeah, I'd have to go and find it. And I only have the outputs, kind of MB tiles, which is nicely compacted. But I don't know. You'd be looking at a terabyte, like
wow,
data.
That's crazy. God, you're right, actually, because I do remember the United States, the USGS maps, weren't they? Again, I know we did compress them further, but they were originally 2.5 terabytes, weren't they?
Yeah, we literally had to buy new machines.
Yes,
so
new machines. Just purely for the purpose of processing.
I came from my old job with my lovely 500 gigabyte hard drive, and I was like, "Hey guys, I have a laptop. It's ready." And Paul just laughed at me.
And, don't worry, I upgraded from the 256 to the 512. It's going to be fine.
I'm glad we're not working with those kind of things anymore. But it's
I forgot to mention we forgot to mention the Anavasi maps as well. Anavasi, some of the other ones as well, just in Europe, just to mention some of the other mapping providers have. So in Greece, we have Anavasi maps, have pretty decent coverage of the kind of the Greek hiking areas, and I've been told by
the island that we were on.
They don't actually. They were like, that's not a great hiking spot. They were just like, nah,
the World Hiking Conference.
Let's have the International Hiking Conference on the island. That's not.
I know, yeah. But they said that they mentioned that this one is the one to go to. Amorgos Island is the one to go to. And there's obviously a bunch of other ones as well that they cover, but they said that's a pretty special place to go to. So if anyone's hiking to Greece, head along there. And there's also Fraternali Editore, and they're based in northern Italy. And then they have is it Edizione Lupo? I think they're in like the North Apennine Mountains. And then there's G4, who are in the north as well. I think that's in this area here, and kind of just east of Genoa. And then the rest of that is all compass maps. And then who else do we have? Over in Australia, we have other national maps. Sorry, we have Vic map, and we also have Tasmap. So anyone planning trips over to Australia? Say that again.
They're about national maps, are they?
Yeah,
they're about maps. They're providing the government. We're about to load up the Queensland maps as well. So all of this was going to go orange soon enough. I'm working on the New South Wales maps, and then New Zealand as well. We have the NZ Topo 50. I actually looked in. There is one other independent mapping provider,
New Zealand.
but they're pretty much identical to the national maps. Like there's not much difference in them. Also, I don't think they are very tech savvy. Sorry if you're watching the conversation I had. They weren't really interested in getting into the technicalities of it.
Honestly, like it's actually, it is blowing my mind a little bit as you're scrolling around this map. Like, this is just functionality that I personally just dreamed about for so long, to have just one single globe where you can go around and have either incredible, maps created by independent companies, East West, Harvey's, Purple Lizard, and then quickly jump over to a national map there and just a single globe, single map. And ultimately, what we want to achieve as hikers, we want end-to-end global coverage where you can see the best maps from the best providers all around the world. And no matter where in the world you want to go hiking or exploring, know that you're going to have a really, really great map. That's the goal. That's where we want to get to. And like, honestly, and again, I know we've only covered a small percentage of the world, but I'm incredibly proud of it. It really is. It's amazing. And I'm just so excited to keep it going,
Yeah, it's great. It's giving... I know that there's other mapping apps out there like Avenza, who are fantastic for like hosting a lot of different maps from around the world. But I guess they're just doing something a little bit different. They're more of a store. They're more of a digital store for maps, whereas we're trying to get maps in front of as many people as possible. Because the model that we've created here is that you don't have to know what map to look for. We're literally going to give you the best map for that area.
Yeah.
And like the one that I'm really excited about at the moment, I'm chatting to the guys in Himalayan Map House. So they will have maps from Nepal, all the Himalayan areas.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's pretty cool distribution. And their maps look pretty damn good too. So just to get that little orange polygon over Nepal is definitely a goal of mine. I'm looking forward.
Did they realize that whenever we are doing 3D map demonstrations, they will be the only maps that will ever get shown? It's just even looking at this area, I'm just like, Annapurna. Imagine having a map for Annapurna. Imagine having a map for Everest Base Camp. It's gonna be class. But there's loads of other areas. Like we definitely want to get maps up around like northern Pakistan, Afghanistan, like all these areas. Like they do have like incredible maps. You just have to get them. I know actually there's the Trans-Caucasian Trail as well that goes through Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. And we know the guys in the trail organization, so they're hopefully going to help us to track down what maps we need to get. I think we did actually speak to them before about this, and they were like, it's just all like old army maps, but who knows, maybe you might see those army maps on HiiKER. Yeah, there's probably a lot of these old Soviet maps, as I mentioned. But yeah, God, that'd be amazing.
Oh yeah, and there's one last one. I'm working on one here in Hungary and Romania, so they'll hopefully be on board soon as well. So you're going to see a lot of orange on this map. It's exciting. It's very exciting. Okay, guys, we'll leave it there. We have ran out of things to talk about, I think.
Maps. We like maps.
Maps. No, we'll forever talk about maps. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Thanks for tuning in. If you tuned in for all or any of this, something I forgot to say the last time we had one of these conversations is join the Facebook group. We will be doing a lot more events like this, probably a lot more organized events, not just hopping on and jumping onto the first topic that comes to mind. And we're going to be doing a lot more competitions and some stuff around the future of the HiiKER app as well. So just search for HiiKER, the HiiKER Maps app in Facebook, join the group, and we'll see you there. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.